Can you make it in the film industry in France without going to school for it? Hi, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, I got a question in my inbox and I thought I'd answer it directly on video because the answer is kind of long-winded and I didn't want to type all of it. But the question boils down to, can you make it in the film industry in France without going to school for it? Historically, yes. Actually, historically, you really don't need to go to school for it. Like, it's very much a trade. Like, I feel like a lot of people learn their jobs on set and on the job because there didn't used to be as many schools for it and as much training for it. But as the industry has grown in the last few years or decades, I would say, with the advent of more premium TV shows, etc., it has become more professionalized, and some things that didn't used to be taught are now taught. For example, I went back to school to study film production, and right before I went back to school, I had an interview to be an executive assistant to a producer. And I was talking with him about how I had gotten accepted into that school, but I didn't know if I wanted more to learn in an academic environment or if I would rather learn on the fly, on the job. And he said to me that if he had had the opportunity like 20, 30 years ago when he started his career, he would have learned what he had to learn. Making mistakes, he would have learned in school. That doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes. I think that was also a nice way of letting me know I was not getting that job. But to say that basically, historically, you don't need to go to school for it. However, the industry has gotten bigger somewhat, even if currently it's not at its best. But also more people have become aware of the industry. I feel like, 10 years ago, I didn't know what a producer did. And now I want to be one. So, yeah. But just because I went back to school for it, because I love the validation of academia, doesn't mean you have to go to school for it, especially because you're telling me that you have a full-time job. Honestly, I would say you should hold on to your full-time job for as long as possible. That kind of mental stability of knowing where your next paycheck will come from is like to die for. And I think a lot of people in the film industry are actually chasing that in a lot of ways. It's something that people wish they had, more stability, especially because you're telling me that you do write screenplays in your alone time. So that means that you have the time and the mental fortitude to be creative in your alone time. And that is so precious. So as long as you can, stay in that job. However, if your goal is really to make it to like write screenplays and maybe direct them for a living, it's gonna take a lot. Because I think film school can teach you a lot, and it teaches you some things that you might learn by yourself by reading screenplays and reading storytelling books, etc. But what film school does is also connect you to a huge network of alumni. And even if you do have that alumni network, you still have to network outside of it. So that means that for you, if you're in a field that has no ties to the film industry, it might take a lot of effort to do that networking part. But before that, I really want to talk about knowing your landscape, because I think the mistake that I see a lot of young screenwriters do the most is not understanding the French landscape of filmmaking and having a lot of references that are foreign. And I think that was also my situation when I started. Like, I didn't watch a lot of French films, I didn't look up to any French filmmakers or producers. Like, my whole world was not France, but you're going to talk to people whose whole world is France. So that means getting really familiar with what films are being made in France, like in the theater, but also short films, because short films are where the new filmmakers are made. So watching them on France TV, Arte, short film festivals, that means understanding the French way of doing storytelling. It is not drastically different from the American way. Like, even some of the storytelling books like Save the Cat are references in France, but there are other references such as La Dramaturgie d'Yves Lavandier, which are references in France and that you might want to get more familiar with. For that, I will leave you a bunch of resources below, links to podcasts, to books. And the last thing I will say is to read French screenplays. They are much harder to come by online, but the CNC has a Scénariothèque. CNC, funding body in France, has a Scénariothèque which shows the artistic submissions of the films that got CNC funding. And this is really important because it helps you understand what French people expect to see in a pitch document. And this is like paramount to whatever you're going to submit. It helps you understand like expectations of the people you're going to speak to. And next thing I would say is to go to festivals. So I wouldn't advise going to Cannes at all, even if I went, but I feel like, I mean, it's expensive and it's alienating and yeah. No, but to go to festivals and to start with regional short film festivals. So you're telling me you live in the Paris area. I would say, for example, soon you're gonna have Côté Court in Pantin, which is a really influential short film festival. A lot of films that go through there go on to win César. So that allows you to see the short films that are being made like this very year, and also to meet people, because basically everyone in the short film festival is more or less in the film industry. A lot of time they're volunteer run. They are talks and masterclasses by filmmakers, by directors, and this is a huge way that you can meet people. And really, meeting people is like the most important thing you will have to do outside of honing your craft with all of these tools that are pretty much the same tools people have in film school. Meeting people is like so important, and you can do it in so many ways. You can do it by being a volunteer on short films. You can do it by going to networking events. You can do it by becoming a member in an NGO. Like, I'm a member of Collectif 50-50, which is an NGO that advocates for gender equality in film, and they have a mentorship program. So for example, you can enter the mentorship program and have someone that like follows you along your career. You can try to submit to really local like workshops and residencies that don't require you to end your whole life and like put 2 weeks vacation to attend. Like, you can do a lot of these things with a lot of time. NGOs that are made to help people who don't come from the film industry. And another way of meeting people is going to special screenings, so short film and feature screenings where the cast and crew can be there. I wouldn't advise going to premieres because they're a bit more stiff sometimes, and it's really more about representation than discussion. I think if there are reruns of a film but with the cast and crew, here to discuss it. I will once again leave resources below for cinemas where a lot of these kind of talks happen a lot. And you can also go to specialized networking events. Although I will say not all of them will be relevant for you depending on where you're at in your journey. And my biggest advice is try never to pay for a networking event. I think that is a huge scam. Do not pay for a networking event. Like, please avoid that at all costs. Like, do not pay to pitch, do not pay to be read. It's really, really not fair. Like, unless this comes from like a recognized festival that has like many years of views, etc., I would not advise at all to pay to be read. Like, send it to me and I will read and I will give you honest but fair feedback. But do not pay. Like, please don't do that. It's a waste of money and I really wouldn't advise you do it. And yeah, at some point, like, you will probably submit your screenplay to festivals that are specialized in screenplays. You will maybe want to direct it yourself or find someone to direct. Just to be clear, I'm talking about short film screenplays because usually you will make your first feature after 3 or 4 produced short films, and before that you will probably have made a lot of self-funded short films. So the path is long and arduous and there's a lot of unpaid labor in it, but it might be worth it for you. I think the fact that you're already dedicating so much time outside of work to writing is such a good sign that you totally have the ability and the stamina to make it in the industry, even without going to film school. As I said, I will leave like many links below. Maybe I will make a Google Doc because I feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff. And you are always welcome in my inbox if you have any more specific questions. If you want me to read your stuff, like, I'm extremely serious. I always want to read. Especially I want to help beginner filmmakers like get a fresh read on whatever they've written. So don't hesitate to send me your stuff. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope I didn't forget anything important. But yeah, thank you for listening and I will see you in the next one. Bye!